Good morning, everyone. We are so excited to welcome you to this diversity panel with UTD's National Society of Black Engineers and Society of Hispanic Engineers. We have some representatives from each organization, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So first, we'll start with Vanessa and Ezine from NSBE.
Hi. So I'm Vanessa White. I am the current treasurer, former vice president, and former membership chair of National Society of Black Engineers. I am a CS major in my senior year. And I need she, her pronouns.
I think we can't hear you.
Now?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Let me start over. My name is Ezine Megwa. I am a fourth-year computer science major, and I am currently the telecom chair for the National Society of Black Engineers. I was previously their programs chair, and I also use she, her, or they, them pronouns.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. And now we'll move on to NSBE. Oh, sorry, I meant Chip. Oops.
Hey, did you call on me?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, it's like really like it sounds like it's underwater, and I think it's my fault. So I may have to turn off my camera for bandwidth, and see if that helps because I couldn't hear you too well. But I'm Emily Lomas. I was the president of SHIP last year, so it's the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and before that I was a corporate liaison, and now I'm a mentor. So.
All right, that's
turn
cool.
off my camera.
And yeah, if you need to turn off your camera, that's okay. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate your time and hope to learn a lot from your perspectives. And if anyone from the audience has any questions, you guys can feel free to drop them in the chat. For now, I'll start with the first question. Okay. So what is diversity and what does it mean to you?
I can go first. So, in my opinion, diversity means that the room that you're in has a lot of influence from other people from a lot of different backgrounds. And outside of that room, there's also ideas that are like flooding in that allows us to have like a full idea of the world and not just whatever little bubble is. Because everyone has a little bubble and they only have so much scope of the world that they can, I guess, let people know and advise people about. And if there's a diverse area, you can get a little piece of a lot of different bubbles instead of just the same bubble being said over and over again. And so I think that means race, gender, sexuality, things like that make a diverse area. And it means a lot to me. I'm currently identified as pansexual. I'm a woman in engineering, a Black woman in engineering. So there's a lot of things that I can give people from my perspective that not a lot of other people can.
I agree with that answer. Diversity for me is having that diversity of thought, that diversity of experience. So to have that diversity of the thought and experience, it's usually because the people have come from different, walks of life, and no two people or three people have the exact same experience. So when I hear diversity, the first thing that comes to mind is like, okay, there's so many different types of people with so many different life experiences that they've gone through that made them who they are. So, and that can include like, their where they grew up, the race can include like their race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality. It could be the culture of the neighborhood that they were in. Like growing up in Texas is vastly different from growing up in New York, and so just all that like kind of accumulating to make you who you are as an individual. That is diversity.
Thank you both for your answer. Okay, I think Emily is going to come back. So for now, we'll move on to the next question then. Okay, so why is diversity important in engineering?
So my thoughts on it is you're making products for all people to use or for specific people to use. And it's important that everyone is included when mass products are made. For example, the cars tend to be made with the thought that the driver is a taller man. And so a lot of women can end up in car accidents as the driver. And it causes them a lot more pain in the accident because the test case for it was, I think it's like 5'7", 5'8" man height, like a bigger body structure. There shouldn't have to be a higher rate in women's death because the test cases did include any women. And just products like that in general. You need to make sure that everyone can be included in some way so that they're not more at risk when using those items. And that can mean software too. Things like being able to read if you have any accessibility problems or type. All products should include all people, or at least have the ability and functionality to include all people, or as many as possible.
Similar to that answer, so why I think diversity is important to engineering is if you have a variety of people working on a project, then it helps you kind of think of scenarios and situations that you may not have thought of. So using Vanessa's example, there's like other examples that I've seen is artificial intelligence. You know, a lot of artificial intelligence are not usually tested on those with darker skin, so it gets a lot of the information wrong because it leaves out that factor. And so just having having people have those experience in like, oh, this is my experience, or this is how I wanted to operate based on like how I live and things like that, it helps reach out to other broader circles. Having more diversity of like say experiences of people with disabilities, you can kind of think of those scenarios and why maybe this product that you're working on may be useful for them, or why it may be useful for this demographic. And then it just helps build a much more all-encompassing product or a software, whatever it is you're working on. You're able to reach a much more vaster, able to have much more vaster outreach of people when you're able to think about all these different like scenarios or experiences of people that you may be trying to reach out to. Kind of ran it out there.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I definitely understand how sometimes, like products are only made for specific kinds of people because there wasn't diversity in like when they were actually making it. So that is definitely important. Emily, are you able to hear us now?
It's a bit better, yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure to send the questions in the chat. So right now the question is, why is diversity important in engineering? If you want to take a crack at it.
Okay, yeah, I can speak on that. So, I mean, once you enter the industry, right, as an intern or like full-time position, depending on the industry, and at least for most industries right now in STEM, you're not going to find people that look like you, or that are women, or that have a similar background, right? And it's much harder to get acclimated to the environment when you don't have that. When you can't go to someone for advice, when you can't seek a mentor that has gone through your steps as well, right? So I think it's important for us to just push as hard as we can to just finish our degree and actually get into these industries so that we can start changing and adding to the diversity of these companies. I don't know, I've had some experiences in the past where you'll be the only minority, you will be the only Hispanic, you will only be, you'll be seeking for people that are like you, whatever your background is, and then you can't find it, right? And then it's up to you to just be like, well, I got to see what I can do with what I have, right? but I feel like it shouldn't really be like that. There should be people that you can be around, because even I think even in the corporate world there's cliques, right? There's the group that likes computer science, the group that likes video games, the group that likes to read. But if you don't find people with your background, right, it's gonna be harder to actually fit in and to relate to people. But yeah, we definitely need a lot more diversity.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry to interrupt there, Emily. Technical
No.
issues this
Good
morning.
morning.
Sorry. Glad to be here, though.
Yeah, glad you're here. It's nice to see you. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Marios. I go by MJ. I am studying computer science. I've been an intern for State Farm I'm coming up into my second year now. It's very exciting, and I'm very happy to be able to be here today.
We're glad to have you. Right now we're on the question, why is diversity important in engineering?
Oh, well, I'm sure you guys already hit on the big points already. But I think we all need diversity because, especially engineering, because we know how bad of a field that we kind of realize that because of the lack of diversity that there's this influx of ideas that you get, but you don't really ever. How can I put this into words without? I don't want to put too much on one side and not put too much on the other. So I think we can all say that besides the work that we do, besides the work that is being put out, we can totally make it better, because I think people of color, people who are the minorities can bring so much to the table, and yet we feel like we cannot. And it's hard because if we believe that about ourselves, and companies feel that too, we can't really have that be a thing, diversity. We need to be able to go out there and to have people also see us for what we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Okay, so move on to the next question. And I think Emily actually touched on this just a little bit. But how do we become more inclusive of diversity in engineering?
So
Go ahead. Sorry.
So I have no more inclusive and diversity. I would say, I know a lot of companies have started their movement to incorporate more women, more minorities into their companies. I think that's a great first step, but they can't stop when they feel like a quota is met or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They need to constantly be trying to get those people for a whole lifetime, and to the point where they don't need those movements anymore. A part of the actual process, being like, okay, this person has a diverse background and we can utilize that because it's important to our team. Not like, oh well, we need some girls, come on in. No one wants to feel like their worth is only based on their diversity. Of course, that is a part of everyone's worth, is their thoughts, the way they're raised, and the ideas that they can bring to the table. But you also want to feel like, really what you're doing is one of the main factors in why you're getting hired, why they're talking to you. And I think there's a lot of women that I've talked to who I'm like, wow, this person is so qualified. She deserves this position. And if a diversity recruiter or just normal recruiter can see that worth too, I think that's how we can make engineering more inclusive and diverse.
I think what we need to do to have more diversity in engineering, it kind of starts from the top down, for certain scenarios. For example, if for a company, I feel like if you want to do more, have a more inclusive and diverse engineering team or software team, you have to first make sure starting from your executive board downward, everyone has some kind of understanding of diversity and training in diversity, and have kind of diversity of thought first in the hiring process. So it's not like, oh, I'm only looking for the same exact people. Like, no, I want to look for different people. Who it may not look like me. So you have the understanding of how to communicate to people who may not look like you or come from the same background as you. You have that kind of understanding from your executive board to your hiring team to your university recruitment. And then on a college campus per se, having more diversity in engineering would definitely, again, probably come from the higher up. Outreaching to those communities, to high school, middle school, getting those kids interested in engineering, computer science. Definitely how I don't know if SHIP does the same thing, but NESB definitely does have a pre-collegiate initiative where we go out to high schools and we have NESB junior chapters, and we kind of interact with these kids and get them interested in engineering and bring them on campus, and just kind of how have these kids see a face and oh, I see this person just I can be the engineer just like this student, and just kind of get them inspired and have them come in with that understanding it can be me too, because a lot of time you don't see your face someone who looks like you in engineering positions. So definitely definitely in terms of recruiting, have that kind of ability to speak to someone who may not look like you, and also have your team have diversity already. So people coming in, younger generation coming in, can definitely see oh, it can be me on that team one day.
I can add to that. I think sometimes we worry about. So I want to go back to so I entered with McAfee for the summer, right? And within McAfee, during the summer, right, we had the Black Lives Matter movement, a kind of spring up, right? So there was a whole wave within the company of let's not ignore what's happening, and let's just address it so that inside of the company we're a lot more equal. We're giving opportunities to those that need it, and to minorities overall. And one thing that stood out to me was someone had said, in order to stop becoming a quote unquote ally and be more active and start opening doors for those people that are suppressed right now, which was just minorities overall, right? Is start opening doors for them. If you see someone on your table that, maybe the intern or the new person at work or the new person on your team, start opening doors for them. Start giving them those projects that will be a lot more meaningful, and stop giving them side work. So that may be right, in our organizations as leaders, whatever organization you're in, if you're part of leadership and you see someone who may not be as active, may need more opportunities, or you think is less skilled, well, why don't you start giving them things that will allow them to become skilled and to allow them to kind of use in other places, and especially in the future, right? So particularly with McAfee, they were one, managers, if you see someone who is Black, Hispanic, Asian, and they're being ignored, start, addressing them, start calling them out, and ask them what their goals are. And that really stood out to me. But also, it's up to you as well, as the person who doesn't get, needs to start seeking out and speaking up for yourself as well, because that will start to kind of be seen by everyone on your team and your leadership as well. Sides, you need the help, and you also need to help yourself. But hopefully, once you're in that position of higher authority, you're the one that's bringing attention to that and uplifting others.
I completely agree with you guys. I think, as mentioned previously, it comes from the bottom, at the same time, comes from the top, trickle it down. And then I think what's really important here is the high school chapters having to be able to kind of set that seed up when they're younger, because it's really a mentality that will persist with you throughout your entire career when you're in college. and it will be there even afterwards. So having to be able to get them to think that they're capable students to be engineers and that they're not alone, basically saying, because they might be in the future, and tell them it's okay, you know, you can do this, you also belong. And of course, Emily, getting out there too, I could say that it's probably really intimidating, and sometimes getting to do those opportunities, I think one of the biggest reasons a lot of people shy away from them is because they might not feel competent enough. I think that's a big issue where people just don't feel like those opportunities coming from where they come from, and having to like hear it or giving someone the opportunity to be able to grow is really important. And I'm honestly really thankful for the people who have allowed me to be able to do that as well.
All right, thank you guys for answering that question. It's definitely making me think, so I might have some questions later. But we have a question in the chat. So this is from Shireen, and she's asking, what are you doing to make sure everyone is included?
I mean, like everyone else has addressed earlier, like the pre-collegiate chapters, yeah, getting people's confidence at the start is a real boost, but not everyone has the opportunity to be in a pre-collegiate chapter. I wasn't, but I was introduced to NSBE through my school because we would have like field trips with NSBE every year. And I thought that was really cool. And so when I came to UTD, I was like, oh, there's a NSBE chapter, let me join. And it's a lot of help. Seeing someone succeed who's also Black really does give you encouragement, and it really makes you want to stick with it. Because I mean, I've thought of changing my major. I'm sure a lot of us have, especially the further along you go. Kind of like, do I really want to do engineering or CS? I don't know, it's kind of hard. But knowing that you do have like a backbone, I think is really important. Because even in the industry, even in the industry, you can move, like having an engineering degree is really broad. You can move to business, you can move to law, and just a lot of things. You can leave the general engineering scope. But if you have people who are also engineers who are diverse like you, who make you feel included, who make you feel wanted, and that's really important. So having resource groups, like I know there's NSBE for professionals, and they still hang out, they still have their resource groups in companies and just within like areas. And I personally am going to join them when I leave because I feel like it'll be great help for me. It'll help me see like, okay, even if I'm not seeing someone succeed who's Black in my specific everyday life, at least every weekly meeting, I'll see someone succeed. And I think it will really give me confidence in things like, I mean, we hack too. I think it's giving a lot of people confidence to continue on with their degree, especially during COVID. A lot of people are really thinking of maybe I shouldn't even continue with college. Making sure that people feel like they have the confidence, I think is really important to include them.
I want to go ahead and answer with the this is how I interpreted your question. If you're asking how we make sure everyone's included within our own organizations, so definitely within NSBE, we try to reach out to all of our freshman members and kind of see and get have like different committees and different initiatives, making sure our members are involved or engaged in a bunch of our different events and activities. And from speaking from my own personal experience, the reason why I'm so involved with NSBE is because my freshman year when I entered, a lot of the officers would come speak to me and like get to know my name and ask me so many questions and talk to me and always make sure they said hi to me when I entered the room, and I was just like, wow, I kind of feel like people are noticing me in this organization. So that's what made me keep coming back to NSBE over and over again, and eventually now I've been an officer for the past 2-3 years. So definitely, like when someone feels like they belong in a place, that kind of usually helps with retention. Not only for NSBE, that goes for all student orgs and all majors. Like if you feel like you have a place in that organization or in that major, you'll usually like you will go through all the hard pieces knowing that you have a support system, someone to support you through all the rough phases.
Yeah, so with SHIP in particular, we were pretty good with being inclusive of, everyone. And we would kind of also say you don't have to be Hispanic or an engineer to join SHIP. You just have to want to have an interest or some type of interest in engineering maybe and wanting to network. But we tried hard to kind of push different initiatives, right? So we would have, we have SHIP Junior as well, kind of like NSBE, right? Where we would also expose high schoolers to engineering and different projects and whatnot. But we also had intramural teams kind of formed for those that really wanted to be active and sporty. We would have fundraisers for those that like to volunteer. We tried to have a little bit of everything along with networking, right? And then once the network opportunities were brought up, to make sure that we kind of included all majors. And so it's all, it's a bit of work, right? To kind of see the type of diversity that you want to include or what you can include. But I think SHIP definitely tried. We tried our best to kind of be inclusive of everyone with different interests, but even people that were maybe interested in SHIP, but not thinking that they fit in.
Yes, Emily already mentioned, we try to do a little bit of everything. We have a great time at SHIP actually too. A lot of it is very, very family oriented. It's very, we really, we have our motto, it's like SHIP Familia, which basically means SHIP family. And we really stand by that wherever we are. We know we go to national conventions and it's like an uprising, it's the feeling that you get, like you guys have mentioned already, when you know you belong and you said that you want to stay there, it's really powerful. It's tremendously powerful because you feel so united and you feel very unstoppable because you see, you're capable of anything. And having that support system, that backbone, like you guys already mentioned, is so essential to anyone's success.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for that answer. I appreciated learning about how all of you guys include or are inclusive. I can kind of speak from SWE's perspective because I'm the vice president of SWE. And so we just started kind of reaching out to high schoolers this year. So we're working our way up to kind of how you guys do it too. I kind of had a question based on what you guys have already spoken about. So some of you mentioned, how a lot of companies and just in general, a lot of people are focused on diversity. And that's really important because from where we were like around the world pretty much till now, it has shifted to be more diversity focused. But at the same time, sometimes it feels counterintuitive because people are really focused on having something diverse rather than on people who are diverse, but as people instead of just someone who's diverse. So where do you guys kind of see the diversity kind of focus going in the future?
I'm gonna recall back to a conversation that I had with my manager. My manager is of color, and one of her main goals is to recruit people of color. And sometimes that's not what you get in your recruitment pool, And the way that I hope to see diversity in the future is to be able to start people of color early and get them out there, because there's so many opportunities, and I think we just don't get them started early enough. We don't get their confidence, as I already mentioned, up enough, like throughout the year, so they can see that they can do anything they want, even STEM, anything, as long as they, they feel like they're unstoppable. And that's what I hope diversity goes to in the future, so that we can really make that change at really a young age. And we were able to see that once they get to college, that they're not alone. They have a support system. They might not be the majority, but there's still a place for them to fit in, and there's still places where they can go. I will mention this though, like we already mentioned, diversities in the shady, because they do have to meet a certain quota. And like we said, you kind of give someone, like, their value is just be diversity for us, because we were not able to do that. We were not able to do it organically. So now we're going to do it this way. And it really sucks, because then now you know that you're the odd one out. Now you know that you're kind of just there to be a statistic. And hopefully that changes in the future, and we realize we harness our potential, because we have so much potential, but we just don't have the opportunity to go out there. We're not always given the chances that other people get, and it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that was really good put into words. So, sorry, can you repeat the question just so I can get the full scope?
Yeah. So right now, a lot of like companies and organizations are focused on having diversity. Kind of like how MJ mentioned, with like quotas and things like that. And so sometimes it can be counterintuitive, because we're so focused on it that it's not like natural. So where do you kind of see the diversity focus or talk going in the future?
Okay, right. Yeah, so in the future, once I feel like there's a good, and I don't want to say like a good amount, but like once it feels like there's, like a diverse person that's organically in a lot of spaces, I feel like where we need to go is thinking about, not reaching the quota, like making sure that people are applying to positions that they are qualified for, because they are qualified for it, and it doesn't matter if they're diverse or not. And hopefully the pool obviously is diverse, but yeah, we want people to feel like they deserve to be there, because they do. Especially a lot of women. A lot of women will definitely lower their own standards when applying to places. Like, again, like I was talking about how, you can have an engineering degree, but then you might go to business or law or something else, or like recruiting, which obviously is perfectly fine. A lot of people are happy there, and you should go where you feel happy. But if you know that you will feel happy in an actual engineering position, you shouldn't second guess yourself when going there. And so I think it's important that we make sure that women and minorities, like just women of color in general, are able to be in those positions regardless. Like, it's not because they're like the token woman of color in the position. It's because they want to be there. It's because they'll strive and thrive in there. So the conversation needs to be where the person belongs and if they want to be there.
So for me, I don't exactly have like a vision per se of where diversity is like going in the company. The direction I do hope that it's going in is that we all these initiatives to like have diversity leads to people like having these conversations about like how can I be much more I guess much more have much more like intercultural communications. How can I speak to people who may not have the same background or identity as me, and have like how can I have this more broader understanding um, of different individuals and things like that. So I'm hoping the direction will like have people go into this path of where I want to be able to instead of like, oh, let me just choose someone who looks like me, let me choose someone who like doesn't look like me, that I can like naturally that I naturally have confidence in. That's the direction I'm hoping that we go in. Just so like we don't like say like in recruiting positions or in like yeah, university recruiters or hiring managers, they don't have to be in the position of like, oh, I need to hire like, oh, let's say I need to hire someone that looks like me. Like I can hire anybody because I have that kind of understanding of like I have that kind of cultural worldview understanding. That's why I'm hoping the direction goes. Like not just like recruiters and hiring managers have that understanding, but like everybody in the organization has that understanding that I can just converse and um, refer or be a referral to or be a mentor for someone who may not look like me or talk like me or come from the same background.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with MJ. I mean, I would agree with everyone, but particularly speaking about like allowing younger students or younger people in general to be aware of possible career paths and exposing them to them will kind of start preparing them for what they want to be when they grow up, right? I think everyone gets asked, like, what do you want to be? The first thought, like doctor or teacher or dancer or artist or something very generic. But what about like a cardiologist? What about an allergy specialist? Like, what about an engineer? And then, personally speaking, I didn't know what engineering was, I think probably until high school. Maybe the thought was there, maybe, the idea of there has to be someone that designed a road, right? Like the name engineer. And then once I was trying to look for majors, I didn't even know there were various branches. I'm like, what do you mean? I thought you just applied to be an engineer and you become an engineer. But kind of exposing all these little details to people at a younger age will allow them to be knowledgeable and then start to filter out, okay, do I really want to do this? And then by the time they have to apply to a job, they'll be qualified, right? Because they've known what it takes to prepare to become a certain role. But I think, yeah, that hopefully there's a better pipeline into creating diversity in different fields. But once we get that down, once schools start to expose a lot of these careers out to the students, then I think we'll definitely see a lot more diversity for sure, probably 20 years down the road.
Okay. Yeah, I liked all those answers. They're definitely making me think a lot. Okay, so we have another question in the chat. So what does an ideal inclusive organization look like?
I'll go ahead and start off with a couple of thoughts. Having been here for a while at UTD and trying to test out various places on campus, or just in general, because there is a plethora of organizations outside of campus that you can also join. But for one of them is feeling like you're being included. There are plenty of times where you just know you get the side eye, you just know you're just not going to fit in. Sometimes there's a chemical like imbalance between you and other people. Sometimes people don't understand where you come from. Sometimes they don't understand what resources you need. And having to look for a place, an organization where the people in leadership understand and care about your thoughts. You talk to them and let them know how you feel. If something, if you want to spark up a change and they care for it and they start it, maybe that's a possible organization that you want to spend your time in. And of course, if you feel like the time that you spend with them is valuable and that you're having, you're growing as a part of their organization, it's definitely something that you can, or you don't have to invest your time in. It's really up to choice.
I definitely. Oh, go ahead.
Go first.
I definitely agree with that answer. When you walk into an organization, ideally, like an ideal inclusive organization, their officer board will take interest in what you have to bring, your thoughts, your experiences, and like they would want you to share that, and they want to ideally an inclusive org will also have the resources needed for for not only for the org to succeed, but for you to succeed when you walk in. So an ideal inclusive organization will have all that in addition to also like caring about who you are as an individual, and also like understanding um, like your experiences and things like that, and just kind of like not it's not like it doesn't ostracize you or make you feel like the odd one out. It just, even if you are the only person in that org with that experience, it kind of embraces it and understands it, and like it kind of embraces your experience, or it embraces who you are, and it doesn't make you feel like you're the odd one out, even if you're the only one with that experience.
Yeah, I definitely think an inclusive organization needs to be accepting of like different ideas and different people and different thoughts. If you don't feel accepted, or if you're purposely wanting to hide a significant part of your like identity, I wouldn't really consider it an inclusive organization all the way. If you feel like you need to not mention, like if you don't mention something just because you don't want to mention it, that's fine, obviously. But if you feel like you need to censor something really specific that you really don't want to, I don't think it's going to be an inclusive org that fully will accept your growth. You want to be able to grow as all of you in an organization to feel included. And I know I've seen on like LinkedIn these posts where people are like, well, that doesn't look diverse because it's like a row of like 10 Black women who all just graduated with their lawyer degree. And it's like, what? They're like, where's the diversity in that picture? They're all Black women. And it's not the point. Those 10 women all were able to grow and strive during their time at that college or in that university or in that organization. And now they're moving on to greater things. It's a diverse organization and it's an inclusive organization because they wanted to see them to their graduation and wanted to help them there. And yeah, like everyone said, it's about being who you want to be and feeling included and feeling like you belong there.
Yeah, and then it's ultimately up to you what you want, right? What's your ideal? You have to take that into consideration and see if whatever organization you're starting to attend meetings at, does it match what you expected? Because I mean, if you want to not really socialize, which is kind of not really the point of being part of an org, right? But if you kind of want to be on the sidelines, at least for the beginning, and you go to an organization that like everyone's active and everyone's talking, everyone's like socializing and stuff, you might feel out of place. But if you want to ease into that comfort level, and maybe there's another organization that allows you to kind of be on the sideline if you want, but to speak up and be included in major, actions of the org, and you like that, then maybe that's a better fit. It's kind of like dating, right? You'll go to an org, think that it's what you want, right? Because the poster or the posts was like, okay, I think I fit, and then you go and you no, this isn't for me. You have the option to move around, and hopefully the org that you initially joined is not the type to really call you out, like, hey, why'd you leave? Or would hopefully you want them to understand this wasn't for me, right? You want to have that flexibility of taking a peek at different orgs and seeing which one best suits you and your interests. If you're in STEM, something that will help you and add skills to you. If you really want to dance, you go to a dancing club, right? And then maybe like that's not the type of dancing you want to do, then maybe it's not for you. But I think just overall having an inclusive organization would just allow you to like boost your potential, right? Hopefully they'll see something in you and they're like, well, I don't think she knows that, she could potentially do a lot more with whatever skills she has. and will bring you to the table to kind of make you flourish. I think that will be an inclusive organization no matter what it is.
All right. Thank you guys so much for those answers. I think we have time for one more question. So I'll go ahead and send it in the chat. So where have you experienced resistance to expanding your approach to diversity and inclusion? And how did you and your team overcome this?
Okay, I can kind of give some perspective into NSBE. So NSBE is open to all, just like SHIP. It doesn't matter if you're Black or engineering, as long as you want to go with our mission statement. Like, we want to see Black engineers graduate. We want to follow them from freshman to senior graduate student and have them graduate as an engineer. So sometimes when people see National Society of Black Engineers, they're going to think, oh, it's only for Black people, and it's going to have this kind of, I guess, prestigious facade where they only, and like, you know, just like, I don't know, some negative thoughts. And like, as NSBE, we want to show that we're not just like, oh yeah, like how stereotypical people are like anti-Black Lives Matter and stuff. We want to show them that's not the case. So we do have fundraising opportunities where we do Beyblades for little kids, and it doesn't matter if the kid is Black or not, as long as the little kid is interested in engineering and interested in Beyblade and wants to have fun, we let them all in, and we let them all play, and we teach them. And those young kids experiencing like, oh, look at all these Black engineers in front of me, regardless of race, it does adapt them to being like, Black people can be engineers at a young age. And those kids are going to end up growing up, and if they choose engineering, they're going to be the people interacting with minority engineers. And so even if someone's hesitant at first when they see National Society of Black Engineers, we want them to know that's not our, I mean, it is our main focus, but it's not like our stopping point. We don't have a barrier that excludes anyone.
I don't have anything to add to that answer, Frank.
I'm like thinking really hard about this question. But I mean, I don't, unless I'm missing something, MJ, but I don't recall having experienced resistance when regarding to like including diversity, because I feel like even if I saw something, I wouldn't let it happen. But I'm still thinking. I don't think I have a good scenario right now.
Yeah, I don't think we quickly to SHIP. I don't think we've encountered this problem just because we like to, you know, grab everybody, and you know how they say, just grab them and be like, oh, you're this, you're that, you're like, we're gonna be close now. You know, in Hispanic households, it's very like the mom, even though we don't want to, and sometimes we do this, even though we have moments where we don't know what's going to be good for us and we want to give attitude. Because I know when I was a freshman, when I first joined SHIP, I was like, oh man, I don't think I want to do this. It's not like it's going to be good for me, but like people know what's good for you, and they tell you, you know, like, come, it's okay, we'll help you. So I don't really think we've experienced resistance in this part as SHIP, but I know I guess in the corporate world that's probably a little more applicable. And to that, I can just say that a lot of the time the resistance is just, it's organic, the way that we see it, because sometimes we just don't have the pool to be able to diversify, and that's due to the pre-qualifications. You know, sometimes the student doesn't feel like they're qualified enough, or they go through an interview and it doesn't go the way they want it to for various reasons, you know, and that just proves to whomever is on the other side of the screen that, you know, our candidates, especially those minority candidates, we're really going to struggle finding them. and that's a way that maybe diversifying, there is a resistance. There is a way of how can we be more creative to let these people come join our company. And it depends on who you have as leadership that I think will really make it or break it, and diversify just your regular pool, not even, positions where they're much higher. It's honestly kind of sad. I'm gonna get savvy, but it's really organic at this point. And like Emily said, maybe in 20 years, we're able to see that change and have not that be an issue, and have more people ready to take on these jobs in whatever field they want to pursue.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I guess I can speak a little bit on the SWE and WeHack just because I'm part of both. So, WeHack is a female and non-binary oriented hackathon, but at the same time, we're not trying to exclude male students or anyone. But you get that question a lot, and it's just because of the name of the organization and the mission statement. So it is kind of it's a tricky situation because you want to keep your focus, but you don't want to exclude someone if you're trying to be an inclusive organization in the first place. So, yeah, okay. I think that's about all the time that we have today. And I just want to say thank you all so much for being here. I know we were having some technical issues, but it all worked out. And yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for the invite.
For having me.
Thank you so much for having us. And if anybody else has questions, I think we dropped the ship Slack on there, and you can look me up. But I guess I'll put down my email too in case anybody has any questions. But thank you guys so much, and I hope everybody has a lovely rest of their Sunday.